Anyway, welcome to the event. I'm the kind of like the warm-up speaker, like the band who like must get the speed up for everybody. So what I did was I put together 3-hour-long presentations into 1.5 an hour long. So if anybody has kind of epilepsy or any other problems if I'm switching slides too fast, then I'm very sorry. I tried to plan my timing better next time. So yeah, my history goes long back, but I think somehow the things that I'm going to talk about security currently are mostly related, perhaps my very long time working in actually print production and print house, and starting from being kind of like in-house designer to implementing ISO 9K and being quality manager, and debating a lot with the auditor about what is the management system, which contains like 2 words, management and system, and what can be difficult, but turns out that's a kind of like a very deep thing. Also, I've been in Zone, which is Estonian largest web hosting provider, where we were moving towards ISO 27K. I'm not going to be talking too much about that, but just kind of like to tell the background that I've had to explain to people different computer aspects and try to think in the context of standards a lot. Currently, I'm working with a title of security evangelist in a company called Vaimo, which actually is Sami word for heart, not the Finnish word for wife. But okay, it's also a Finnish word, but it has Sami roots. We're doing e-commerce. We were a long time known as a Magento house, but we are moving more into kind of like headless backends, microservices, all kinds of cool things for young people. Kubernetes, everything, and our clients are pretty large companies. So kind of like being in security is kind of like a responsible job. I try to be a responsible security engineer. We have 600 plus humans in a lot of countries, and being development house, we can expect that a lot of them are actually kind of like doing something with code. That much about the background. My funky title, security evangelist, actually I try to be like 50-50 humans and code. So sometimes I'm deep in the logs or kind of like analyzing whatever is happening on Kubernetes and going down to the, let's say, processor cycle levels. And then I'm kind of trying to explain to project managers and managers, things like that. I like to do risk analysis, because somehow I see that's kind of like basis of everything. We'll be talking more about that. And my hobbies probably are something related to pen testing and kind of like cleaning up after the death of whatever systems. So the topic is kind of like communicating security. And everybody recognizes, where's the quote from? Does somebody recognize the quote? Mr. Robot, yes. Unfortunately, I don't have a cookie for you, but probably you can get a cookie later from the area. Which I think is kind of like interesting way of communicating several aspects of security. And too often, when the security communication is thought about, we're thinking like, okay, it's strong passwords, MFA, and I think there was some third things. Oh, don't click on links. So that's security communication, we can move on. For me, with a house of a couple of hundred developers and different participants in delivery, the question is more complex. So how to actually get everybody to kind of like understand the same things? Because often when I'm coming with my security topics, everybody's like, I don't know, it's bird's language or something like that. So what are you even doing? What are you wanting that? And so on. So I'd like to start from one standard, which actually isn't the one you're going to all kind of think now that, yeah, he's coming back to that 27K or something like that. I take a standard, which is ISO 9241/11, ergonomics of human system interaction. which has a nice definition of a word usability. So it is as a definition, usability is the extent to which a product can be used by specific users to achieve their specific tasks with goals, with effectiveness, efficiency, and satisfaction. And again, coming back to the specific context of use. How does actually security fit into that? Last year, I was actually on a conference called World Usability Day, where Zinaida Benenson was giving a very nice presentation about usability of security tools. And their study was based on antiviruses and similar things like, and they were studying what are people doing if the antivirus pops up the dialog that you have downloaded an infected file. Results to summarize was that they basically ignored that or clicked wherever or whatever, expected that everything is clean now. But perhaps the more important part of her talk was that usability of a secure system or policy is how their users can continue fulfilling their or doing their primary goal, achieving their primary goal. And the security goal being actually something that's secondary, behind everything. And often the security goal can be for them completely invisible. So that's kind of thing which makes the communication difficult. And still getting the same effectiveness, efficiency, satisfaction, and she had it, or at least low dissatisfaction, which kind of like is often the case with the security. And during the execution of primary tasks in specified context of use and attacks. What are the attacks? How did they come here? I also need to say that my quote is much shorter than her original text. It just would have been kind of like epos, but currently I'm here. The first things we need to kind of understand now is that what are the roles? Because we were talking about specific users, how they are interacting with the security. So what are the good parts we are actually doing to each other, thinking in DevOps context? We are probably calling these parts slightly differently in our houses, but in my house, the one which brings in the customer money is called delivery team. So they are dealing with everything that is project or client specific. They are developing some specific application or customizing the application for this client, doing TVQA and so on. And their innovation is actually kind of like making the usability, making the new features, making this client's brand unique and performing well. And they are actually consumers of processes and patterns that are managed by the next part, which is, in our case, platform and SRE. So they are dealing with everything that can be standardized, that can be made into the whatever as a platform, making sure that things are repetitive and running all the time. They're creating common tooling and processes for everybody, and their innovation is actually that everything is moving smoothly. They are not trying to disrupt anything. So when we have kind of like a issue in the house that delivery teams are not very happy with the different platform side decisions, this is exactly because whatever change they introduced. Perhaps because we wanted to get something more secure that can break a lot of kind of like ways of thinking, or whatever else. This is kind of a thing when it creates friction and probably isn't the role of that part. And having worked with different techies in my life, I found that we do tend to love our servers or our whatever orchestration platforms or everything. That's what we're doing. We are having this really cool Kubernetes running everything for us. And the developers or the delivery teams are saying that whatever, what Kubernetes, we are kind of like making a nice web shop here, so just make the Kubernetes work and make my SQL work fast. Do not install the fucking default settings with MySQL because they are not going to work. For past 10 years, running on our legacy platform, which was just kind of like whatever, OpenVC, kind of like proto-containers, everything worked, you had all of the configurations figured out, and now you just are putting the new thing and default configurations, and what you guys are thinking at all. So this is kind of a place where the friction between different roles in this thing comes to play, and it has also very serious security implications. Then, perhaps not that much, the question for today is the IT, which I see as something that is providing the context for everything. The core of us is perhaps the knowledge of delivery teams and also the platform we are building for them. But IT, it's more just like, it's even kind of like smoother than what I'd expect from a platform. And then it's kind of like, okay, what the security guys are doing. And turns out that I'd kind of like to be the guy with the hoodie and always be doing something cool, or maybe protecting the universe and everything. Mostly, when I kind of started, I didn't think that actually getting everybody to understand ISMS is something that's interesting. And turns out that as I'm getting older, somehow getting people to behave in a predictable pattern, not as a Brown movement, is giving me more and more internal peace, so I can basically we have a nice ISMS, I'm chill. Also, we have some specific tools, we create some sellable services, blue team, if the delivery teams and platform do not kind of like get the message, we can be red team. And the best part of me, which I added at some end of some meeting where we were discussing some constant pain in ass. Yes, that's me. Hi. So this brings back to us to the question of platforms and everything. Software defines something. It can be computing, whatever. And for me, coming from actually time of design, also web design, and it's kind of like templates. And it's kind of like a cascading set of templates, which is pretty often not known if you are not starting from the big picture. Because then you are kind of like, okay, this is this YAML where I'm dealing, and then I need to tell 10 servers, I probably copy the YAML 10 times. It should be very easy to put it into different folders. And I'm rarely seeing in live the situations like which are comparable to something people have been doing in the Word, like not using the heading 1 and heading 2, but just kind of like selecting every line and telling it's larger or smaller or more or less bold. But when we are thinking about the layers or cascades of templates, we can think that actually the platform guys, okay, they are making some templates that the delivery guys can actually use. So delivery guys are actually loving the platform guys because they are getting really cool and well-working templates. And everything just like it was said that, okay, what we are wanting to go, we are going to want to go to, I don't know, have networking and beers and whatever options were offered to us, so on. SRE is also very happy because they are kind of like running the templates and everything is systematic and it works nicely. And security, we are just kind of like making sure that template makers are actually sane. So kind of like they consider also like what's happening outside of their delivering all of this information or smoothness. So what's the impact on the world? So how do you actually build a security system on templates? Well, the solution is simple. A bit more templates. So that's actually what I'm going to talk. For me, it kind of like starts, as I've said, understanding the general picture of threat model, or what's the risk. then kind of like understanding what is our position in relation to these risks, and then actually going deeper and trying to see how we can make things work correctly in this context. Threat model basically answers the simple question, what the heck could possibly go wrong? As we are kind of DevOps, then one of the simpler pictures of that is Microsoft Kubernetes threat matrix updated from last year. Interestingly, the reds and greens, I just put the picture here because it's colorful. This is just like showing changes between the previous one. This doesn't show any particular attacks or protections, but it's nice colorful picture. Because the next picture I'm going to show you is much more scary. This is the main MITRE attack matrix that also this Kubernetes matrix is kind of like based upon. And when you're going to some kind of security training, like you, I don't know, want to become security professional, or amateur like me, at least, or you are actually doing some kind of work in larger companies in analyst, researcher, whatever role, you are going to kind of like be working in exactly this framework. So what it is, it started out with some attacks, or dealing with attacks on some large providers in what it said military industrial complex. So Northrop Grumman or whichever of these big ones it was. So they started collecting and making a system of all of the ways that have been used to attack this particular enterprise level customer or company. And that's why it's called also attack matrix for enterprise, because for small guys like me, we have kind of like security department of a couple of people, so basically we can just concentrate on telling people to use strong passwords and see that there is MFA. So there was a guy from a banking background talking on a B-Sides conference some month ago, and so he said that actually you are getting into the level of abstraction of MITRE attack matrix when your security team is something like 20 persons. That does not mean that you should not look and familiarize yourself with that before, so you kind of understand what's happening around you, but no way trying to implement that. What it describes, and what I have found is also very important in all of these platform and delivery team relations, is there is actually something, this is a pyramid of pain. So when we are protecting then or detecting opposing party, then things like hash values, IP addresses, these are simple from them to change. What's really difficult is TTP, tactics, techniques, and procedures, or how they are actually working. So all of the question of this complex matrix is actually break the chain of possible compromise in your systems by just making it as painful as possible for attackers. So if I'm telling you that I was, whatever I said, the constant pain in us, then no, the pain word comes from here. It wasn't just kind of like trying to use rude words on conference. No. Being a pain, that is actually our work. We are kind of like being paid for bad guys. And all of these things, when you actually kind of like have time to zoom in, you're going to see that it kind of like spreads out, and there is layers of different parts. So tactics, techniques, procedures. Okay, tactics are like we want to get initial access, or we want to exfil data. Techniques are then how we actually going to do, like we are phishing, or maybe, I don't know, hitting the sysadmin with a large wrench or something like that, or whatever. So they are all listed here. Everything has a nice categorization number. So when you're kind of like thinking that, I was just on a clarified hunt the hacker training. So basically all of the labs I have numbers like T1611. All of these things have explained like this is the procedure. Which bad guys have been using that with particular links to case studies and or some kind of blog post about how they have been operating. So these are their guys' procedures or kind of like change of and specific tools they have used. There are mitigations what we can do to protect against these, and there are kind of like instructions how to do the detection. If you actually do want to dig a bit deeper, then there is also something called Mitre CIS, Cyber Analytics Repository, where you can go in and see, find out specific rules, how it's possible to actually detect these kinds of things. And if you ever want to kind of like learn that, which I suggest it's a very cool thing, then there is something like MAD Skills Hub. MAD is, I think, Mitra Attack Defender, so actually looking from other sides. So, coolest thing of all. Like you have been talking about, okay, free and open software, and then it's okay, open like beer or whatever, free like beer, whichever was discussion. All of this thing is completely free. You just need to kind of like Google, or when you get later my slides, I've tried to have all of the nice web snapshots also linked, so you can go and see how it works. And just to show that basically everybody is using the same tools. So these tools I'm showing you are exactly picked because different players on the field are trying to talk the same language. And when you are talking about security, you're probably using similar things. So this is Financial Services Group's Kubernetes attack trees. The slide is very small. Sorry, because actually the rest of attack matrices are like so long, so I just took the smallest one. So, but so there is top is malicious code on workload, and I think there is a question of how to get some kind of credentials or some kind of private information. So sometimes it's drawn from up to down, sometimes other ways, but this is listing all of the ways which attack can go. And I'm using that each time I'm talking to platform guys, well, maybe each time, but I'm referencing to that each time when I'm talking to platform SRE people, because it's very simple to say that, oh, during the sprint we fixed this problem. So security done, let's move on to the next topics we need to do. And then I come back to the graph and saying, okay guys, yeah, you did that one. But what about these others? So it's often important, especially in systems with a lot of layers of abstractions, like I like to call Kubernetes that, to keep a list of things that are all of the other things that need to be done before we can say that, okay, we are reasonably secure, I think these bad guys can't get in. Fortunately, well, like there is cool thing called XML. There is also kind of like XSL translations and whatever. So if we have well software-defined system, then we probably can also automatically test and understand it if it's kind of like matching whatever format state we want it to be. So for that, there is a bunch of benchmarks. It kind of like, for alphabetical reason, starts with Alibaba Cloud, but there are everybody else is there also, and there is not only clouds. There are things like Google Workspace or just the Gmail and everything else. How to manage, what to test, everything. Nice books. Everything they have tried to categorize now the specific, let's say, misconfigurations or possibilities with these platforms. So you can go through and answer the questions. Yes, is the instance configured with default service account or not? The automated means that probably this test can be also easily automated. So you can have some script running that day in, day out. and they have written ton of text. Every time somebody comes to me and explains that, okay, smart guy, Peter, how do you suppose I'm going to now fix the problem you have pointed me? And then I'm saying that, okay, I was talking to you about the problem 4.1, and so you go to the page, I don't know, 32, and there is exactly explained how can you find out there is a problem, and what are the commands on command line, or where to click on some menu to fix it. So kind of like, again, and this is free, like peer or open, whichever it is. And they are going specific. There are Kubernetes benchmarks. There are benchmarks for, let's say, Google Kubernetes engine. Why I'm showing that? Because, of course, I have been told by Peter, you are telling about the Kubernetes benchmarks, but we are using AWS or Azure or GKA. This is completely different. We can't do all of this. Smart people with big heads have already made the specific versions of these. So no problem, let's start doing that and fixing the things. So again, everything is visible and so on. Oh, but it's long text and I need to somehow audit that. Well, it's basically git clone, run some Python, have some credentials to your things, and it will start showing pictures. So here's kind of my colleague Vova, Slava Ukrainu. He's currently preparing to go on front, so I'm highly missing him, but I hope he gets to go to the Kubernetes front somehow, not to the real ones. No information where it's going. Anyway, you're getting the lists, and all of the numbers can be referenced back to the things that need to be changed. So if you need to explain to somebody, you can copy-paste from the benchmarks the text that needs to be done, and you have a very nice Kubernetes security audit report to sell to your customers, or your developers or managers or whatever. There are the same things. If you're kind of thinking that all of this is too difficult for all of your managers to understand, then managers want to know whatever. It's kind of like, but is this in the Gartner's magic quadrant? What did whatever say? So I have here also linked to a very nice documentation, a document which is NSA and CISA. So at least NSA, I hope you know. CISA you should know, but probably don't know, which is Computer and Information System Security Agency or something like that. And NSA is the one where information goes in and never comes out, with the exception of some kind of very cool suggestions. And when you want to get deeper and understand, there are two books I'd deeply suggest you to read. The Container Security by Liz Rice, which goes and tells you everything, how actually containers work, and you can try it out on shell without actually running Docker, but just running Linux basic components. And then there is Hacking Kubernetes, from where, among other things, are coming these nice attack matrices, these attack trees, and things like these. So, just a small interlude, how to kind of like make all of these things more understandable, because from the benchmarks you're getting some kind of findings like these, and who understands what it even means? So at some meeting I was asked that, can you like compare it to securing your house? So I made a special translation into securing your house, starting with things like make sure your fridge or toaster does not open the door if somebody knocks. And there are also things like minimize the number of goofy friends kid or spouse brings to home. So everything like that. If you want to have a kind of quiz later, so what was the point actually, then I have also the clear text version of that, but let's meet on the networking part on some lunch. So, and if you need that, again, it will be on slides you can use for your own. And all of that is needed, so we can, when I'm going to discuss with the DevOps guy, the questions like, I think one of these was exactly auto updates. The typical answer, yeah, we're doing manual updates. Okay, so I checked the prod. Why are there 5 high rating vulnerabilities since half a year? Because some switch will burn down. And this has actually happened to us in some previous place where we couldn't upgrade the production because for some reason the actual kind of like traffic caused by updating the operating systems caused the switches not exactly to burn, but they were breaking themselves. So really, there can be things that we don't need to. Why can't you do updates? And it goes on. But I'm running out of time, and I've been kind of like concentrating on the ops side. So, dev guys. Well, I think it's way more talked about, so I'm very quickly going over. So exactly the same pattern is also present in OWASP. So we have something like top 10, which is kind of like basically publicity tool, like nice colorful flyer. There is ASVS for actually testing things, which by structure somehow kind of like reminds me all of the things I showed to you about the previous things like attack matrix and so on. It spreads out. Everything of that is available free, so you can actually go there and read how to not make bad remember my password solutions. The cheat sheet. That's what the first one was testing. Cheat sheet is for actually doing it correctly. And then again, when you kind of like zoom out, you're going to see that all of these pieces are kind of like forming one larger picture. So there is some kind of publicity material. There is a standard telling what to do. There is a VSTG testing guides how to do that. And there is a cheat sheet how to fix. Not all of them are as well kind of like formatted and as systematic as SIS benchmarks, but basically you are going to see the same things. So all of these parts have this general awareness part, frameworks, guidance, and these instructions for fixing. So in security, that's the pattern we are trying to think. So if your security guy tells you something that, which is something, it's always good to ask, okay, what's the kind of like categorization of that? What does it, where it come from, where I can read more? Because there is always some kind of like thing to learn. And basically, we can come back from that to the ISO 27K. And turns out, it has, we can put that with kind of like somewhat of kind of like bending into the same format. There are general requirements. There is Annex A of controls. There is ISO 27002 for best practices. And well, there is the rest of the family, so definitely no time to talk about that. But most of it is actually pretty simple. The non-orange parts are actually required parts. Orange parts are kind of like required if you have done the risk assessment and found out that, okay, you need to do risk assessment, but you found out they are needed. So the usual approach is like everybody's starting by doing some small things like, okay, let's fix one container problem. There's so much of them, oh my God, panic. A better approach is just let's start from kind of like simple risk assessment. So what's going on? Does it need to be complicated? No, let's think what's impact. Let's put some money number to impact, like, I don't know, I lose kind of like half of my monthly bonus versus the company goes bankrupt. What's the probability? Something at the 10 minus 4. What is even at 10 at the minus 4? But yeah, once in a 10 year, once in a year, once in a month. Oh, sorry, forgot to translate that. So basically, yeah, we can just sit around the table and 4 of us can just kind of like say what we are thinking is the number, and we are going to get a nice summary of what's risk. And from that, we can go back and start to think of this. Okay, we had these risks. Where are these in this attack matrix, and what we can do about them? Not to be in the situation like that, so it's kind of like a Google translated version of last week's Estonian newspaper, complete IT idiocy. They had been running the system, I think, for 10 years, and forgot some servers, internet, like web servers are connected to internet or something like, so some basic concepts got forgotten. So to avoid these things, just think where it actually failed, find the tools to fix that from the particular framework, and then do the fixing part. There will be, I think, plenty of following presentations who are also going to touch the part of how to fix things. I'm just showing you how to break things. I'm from security. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have some questions? We have pretty tight on time, so I'm taking 2. Okay.
Okay. Because coffee doesn't wait, so.
Yeah, hello. Thank you very much for the talk. My question is, like, you mentioned that security guys or girls, whatever, should be like a pain in the ass of the developers. But should it be like that? Should you be a pain, or maybe you should be like a guide or a helper who can, guide the developers through the security journey?
Yes, it's kind of like the old Roman saying that decimations will continue until morale improves. So if I kind of like tell on the introduction that I'm pain in the ass, and actually comes out that wow, this guy can help me, then it's a positive impact. So by starting being an asshole, I can just only go and get better. So, but actually, on practical side, yes, when I joined the new house with 600 colleagues, where did I start before I had too much to do? I started exactly building liaisons with every team, every kind of like different level, and trying to find things how I can help them, including marketing and HR and whatever. And that's how I built the kind of reputation. So, okay, Peter has his kind of like things he wants. But if something breaks, turns out the security has the best logs, has the most experience with the logs, are actually really strong at doing all kinds of incident analysis and post-mortems and root cause analysis and these. So if there's a problem, where do we go? Ghostbusters or security department. So yeah, so really insightful question. Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have one more question? Last, okay.
Hello. As the world is going more and more towards APIs, do you find yourself getting more involved with API security at all?
Do we have two more hours? I think API security is most under kind of like dealt topic on this side because it brings into the play so many new factors, starting from, let's say, the most simple things, the developers who have been used that everything is running on their server box, and they can have whatever. You can basically put everything behind the cupboard, and it's safe. And then you have actually the code is running in the browser. The question of what's the user supplied data and what's the known safe data, the borders are going kind of mad. People who are coming from the React side, they don't even understand what is the word authentication, how it works, and what's authorization. And when you actually have a problem with things like, okay, I think how to hack Elasticsearch behind my API, you can find tons of things about topics of, let's say, just XSS, SQLi, all of these kind of things, almost top 10. And with APIs, try to find me a nice talk which explains what can go wrong with interfacing. What is like Elasticsearch injection, how it is. So there's, I think, one YouTube video. So this is so uncovered field. Oh, OWASP, by the way, has API top 10 also. But it's also very good. I could go on for days probably. So. But I'll be on the networking, and so just come and ask. So I'm happy to talk.
Absolutely. I would like to thank Peter for a nice keynote.
Thank you.